LinkedIn Echo Chamber. This is Emma's Light Teen Spirit. Today I've got Tristan back with me. Tristan, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks, John. How are you?
Really good. Thanks for coming back. Tristan, the data translator. You've been with me before. You're an analytics manager, but you specialize in trying to create an impactful analytics team, which means you've figured out how best to work with the stakeholders and how they can work with you. And you regularly write on these topics. So last time we were together, we were talking about how business stakeholders can get more from their analytics group by through various tips. And today we're going to come at it from the other way. So we finished last time by saying it can't just be the stakeholders who have to get it right. The analytics group have a responsibility for this as well. So if I ask you to kick off, actually, could you frame this a little bit for me? If like you have your analytics team there must be, you must talk about this all the time. So what's the problem at hand?
Yeah, this is one that really frustrates me. I think we quite often, working in analytics and with technical people, we can get really frustrated by like people not getting us, but we tend to put all the blame on them. We never look inwards and be like, is there anything we could do differently to help them? Maybe we just moan about them chucking requests our way, asking silly questions, but we don't actually feed any of that back. We just go into our little dark corner, do some coding, and moan about them to each other. So this is one of my big frustrations. And you see things now like there's all sorts of data literacy training out there, which I think is great, but it very much again puts the problem with the business stakeholder and not with the analytics team. It's going to take both parts of the business to kind of meet in the middle and to work together to make sure it's a collaborative approach that means the business as a whole benefits, not just one side or the other.
Right, Chester. Well, I'm excited to hear more about this. For all my stakeholders that I ever worked with watching this, I never went back to a dark corner and said that you were asking me silly questions. So this must be something unique to where Tristan is working.
Yeah, it's all me.
But let's get down to it. The analytic people can take some responsibility for making sure the job gets better and better by, it can't just be everybody else has to go off and train themselves when we're employed to work together to hopefully get better and better every year. So where can an analyst start? Like where's a starting point for this of a first tip of you're the frustrated person in the dark corner. What's the first step out of this dark corner, Tristan?
So getting out that dark corner and talking to people. I think that's the big one. You've actually got to go and talk to people. So quite often you'll get a request by email, over Teams, Slack, whatever. Maybe you've got a ticketing system that people ping requests through. But that's quite an easy way for them to just ping requests. So they'll ping something off quickly. I need an answer to this. And quite often data teams, particularly junior people in data teams, will see it as their job to just answer that as quickly as possible. Like I'm doing my job if I close out tickets, a bit like an IT service desk would. So that's not the way to do it. You'll end up just having loads of requests, having to repeat work, loads and loads. So the first thing is, like, don't just do a request from an email. Go and actually talk to that person. Try and find out the bigger picture. See what they're trying to solve. And 90% of the time, you'll find it isn't actually what they sent over. They're trying to do something different. And by having that conversation, you're then able to figure out what they really want, find a different solution to it, and they'll be far happier because you've actually solved their problem rather than batting back and forth different requests that don't actually solve their problem.
Well, let's put this to the test, Tristan. You're an analytics manager at your company. How do you manage your inflow of requests in your company? Prove that you've nailed this. What's the system?
I haven't nailed it. But we make sure we go and talk to people. We're a company that are on site, so pretty much every one of my stakeholders is available for me to go and have a face-to-face conversation with. So quite often I will get an email, but I'll respond, I'll ask questions, and I'll try and find some time to go and actually talk to that person. And then it's kind of a two-way thing, isn't it? It's if it is just they fired off a quick thing without thinking about it, and then they're not willing to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes talking to you about it and really defining the problem, then you've solved one of your problems because you don't have a request to do anymore because they're not investing in it. So why would you invest time in it?
Yeah, I'm doing have my own working life, and I'm speaking to people like you, and I'm getting I've got another thread where I'm really trying to speak to CDOs and senior leaders that have just a different job altogether, where they're managing multiple teams, and a few of them say to me they have these strategies for just like continuous communication with their stakeholders, and it means that they don't really get requests. If you could follow the logic,
Yeah.
it's more like they invest in continuous communication, even if it were not really necessary that week. There's still that kind of like visit the CTO's desk at 8 a.m. And the questions come. It's don't
Yeah.
wait for it to be an email. Even it's more like it's a bit more organic when you're spending a lot of time just in meetings and stuff like this. If you keep that communication level high, then maybe you start to swerve the email altogether, and it becomes much more conversational and collaborative just by virtue of your behaviour.
That's the one. And if you're talking to people daily, and it's kind of that you find the big problems, and if you can solve those, then you're creating a real collaborative partnership.
So we're as far as that the analytical people should be up and about from that dark corner, and talking with others is a good start. What else can they be doing to impress their stakeholders? What can the analysts do to make the whole process more effective?
I think clear communication is one, clear timescales, clear explanations. And quite often one of the things I find is that stakeholders don't know how long something takes. And something they might think is really hard is actually really easy, and you can solve it in half an hour. And some of the things they think are easy are actually really hard and will take days of effort to actually figure out. So being able to give them timescales and keep them informed on what's going on, I think is really important. If you're producing something, getting an initial draft in front of someone, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can caveat, this is a first draft, this is the approach I'm taking, this is how I'm trying to solve your problem. Shows you're making progress. And this then leads into them being able to think a bit more on it. And pretty much every request kind of changes over time. So if you're doing that, you can then start to work through the problem together, and your first answer will never be the final one. So that helps manage some of that change as well.
Talk to me more about the change. What about when it changes from the stakeholders' direction? So everyone who's ever done analytics would know this, where there's a key question that you're working on, and after your draft, probably when you show that first one, you get 10 more, and the project begins to grow. Like, do you have any reflections on that, or strategies for managing it? Like, what approach would you take?
I think the first one comes back to the clear goals at the start. So if you've worked with a stakeholder and they've said, this is what we're trying to achieve and this is the outcome we want, when you get those 10 extra questions, you can narrow it down to maybe two. Which are the two key questions that really help us towards that goal? It's never going to be that first question that solves it, but those additional questions, it's probably not 10. That's just the thoughts that come into mind. You start springing off other ideas. You don't want to answer all of them. Pick the ones that are going to make the biggest difference. And I think you just need to understand that pretty much every request will change at some point. So you need to bear that in mind when you're doing things, build in that flexibility. And the final element is knowing how often that request is going to come in. Is it a one-off thing, or is this something that needs solving again and again? And that question is going to come up again and again. And then you'll tackle it in a different way, so you can build for repeatability, which then reduces your frustration on those getting requests all the time.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, good point. Talk to me on the impact side, and even zoom into what you do at work right now. Okay, so there's all these requests coming in, and they kind of have a potential bang for their buck. They must relate to something. How do you look at things, Tristan? How do you kind of try to, assess the scale of an impact, or how do you ask questions about what will you do? The old what will you do with this? Like, so if you were with the stakeholder, what kind of information are you trying to gather or see that they know? It's not a loaded question at all. Just like wondering what you do to try and assess, how much value this analytics could create. So, like, do you actively do this when project lands with you?
Yeah, it's all about that communication again, and actually having some business knowledge. So we've talked about data literacy, but you need some business literacy as well. It's like one of the fundamental things you need to do is work out how your business makes money. And if you know that, then you can help relate everything else back to it. So knowing that then really helps you prioritize and define these requests. And working with those stakeholders helps you narrow it down a bit more. The other elements, I guess, are working out whether it's a time saving, whether it's a revenue maximizing project, or whether it's a cost saving project, and which one's flavor of the month at the moment. Which one are we trying to do as a business that's going to make the biggest impact to our board members, our investors, whoever it may be that it pays the bills to employ you? Which one of those is their big topic? So you probably want to solve the one at the top of their list first.
You said something interesting there from the business literacy. So any data community, we probably harp on about data literacy from what we expect from others. Not everywhere has a program for this. Yeah. So data literacy is a bit of it's a little bit of a buzzword. We wish we had it, but no one necessarily takes responsibility for making sure that others have it. So on the business literacy piece, your team lead, Tristan, for the team leaders out there, are there things that you do, like as team lead, to kind of keep your team informed, or how do you make sure your guys and girls are kind of, I don't know, up to date with what they should be working on, or have everything clear? Like, have you got any simple management tips that you could think of?
I'm probably quite fortunate in the position I'm in now, because I've also got responsibility for pricing and a couple of other things that are kind of business roles as well. So I describe us as an operational data team. So we're quite lucky in that we also build stuff for ourselves and are part of kind of the operational business. And this is where you get that divide between sort of data teams saying the business, where actually it's you're working with your colleagues, right? So you should go and understand more about what your colleagues do. So just going and spending time with them, people are really happy to talk to you about kind of their subject area. It's what they do all day long. They're probably quite passionate about it. So going and talking to them, getting them to show you what they do, and you'll see loads of things that you can help them improve on. There's so many elements where you'll go and sit to some people who use Excel somewhere in the business, and they'll use it as in they've just picked it up and they kind of know how to use it, but they don't know the 20 different ways they could speed up their job. And just by sitting with them, you can give them a couple of little things, point out a couple of things, and they get a bit of data literacy by you doing that, and you get the business literacy of understanding their processes and how they operate in their job.
Yeah, Tristan, that's really good. Thank you for that feedback. You really reminded me of one of the first bosses I had that really inspired me. Shout out James. Would get guest speakers to our team meetings. This is like when I was a young guy. It's like a DOS. You're like, oh great, someone's coming to talk to us.
Yeah.
But after like the 10th one, you're like, damn, I can really see things like something that person said, like related to what someone else said 2 weeks ago. So even if you seem to have the fortune of you're like a central point where you've got various things going on that gives you visibility. So by definition of working in your team, people have to know stuff and can see things.
Yeah.
I suppose if you were a bit more how we started this call, like in the basement or the dark corner. We always say that about people. We never really are. Well, I hope some of you aren't there. Anyway, but if you were more of a service function, I suppose, kind of guest speakers, inviting yourselves to other meetings, getting folk to come to your meetings to tell you about what they're doing is one strategy team leaders could use to, just shine a light on what do other people even do here and how might it relate to what we're doing. But there we go. So Tristan, look, thanks for all those insights. Thanks for taking us through that of what the analytical people can do to have more productive working lives. And ladies and gents, this has been Emma's Like Team Spirit.